So, good morning, everybody. Today we're talking about fungus, plants and fungus, moving on to the land. Previously, we discussed prokaryotes and their awesome ties to the water, to aquatic environments. They needed it to be moist. That's such a fun word to say, moist. Um, but now we're going to start getting on land because not everything lives in the water. In the beginning, early evolution, right? Plants and fungus all started in water. They were completely surrounded by aqueous solutions, and that made life pretty easy. They didn't have to worry about how do you hold water on the inside. You guys know what happens to a plant when you don't water it? That is correct. It dies. Wilts, falls over. So a lot of plants and fungi needed to adapt to life on land. Early on, retaining water inside was not a problem. You could always grab more from around you. But later, as they got on land, it became a major issue. Plants, when they get on land, when they don't have water, undergo what's called desiccation. That means that they dry out. As you can see, for the plants along the windows are brown and dried and desiccated. If you were to remove all of the water out of a person, they would be a desiccated husk. The way plants adapted to live on dry land, and they had a few different ways. One way is by producing 3D tissues, three-dimensional tissues. So tissues are just clumps of the same type of cell, and they allowed multicellular plants, not unicellular, multicellular plants, to retain water, to hold it on the inside. Think about it this way. You guys will notice that when it's really dry outside, you start to feel your hands getting dry, right? Like your feet, your hands. It's the outside of you that gets dry, not the inside of you. Because if the inside of you got dry, what would happen? Not, that's correct, you die. Actually, that's going to be the, I guess, general answer from here on out is you die. Because if these things start breaking down, you cannot survive. Plants cannot survive. So what these plants do is they have one cell in the middle that's this nice wet cell, and they surround it with cells that sort of protect it from the elements. It's like creating a coat out of dead bodies. I don't know. Look, I just lost it right in the middle of that metaphor. But if you can imagine wearing a coat of dead bodies, you would stay nice and moist on the inside while the bodies on the outside dry out. Now, we'll step into fungus first, because we're going to talk about both plants and fungi. You could talk about either of them. They are very distinct from each other. Fungus are not plants. Plants are not fungus. Fungus, though, are monophyletic. Of any group that we've talked about the entire semester, taxonomy works for fungus. It works genetically. It works morphologically. Everything about each fungus will fall into a very, very particular clade based on their properties and based on their genetics. Every single one of them is in one group, so they're monophyletic. Fungus are extraordinarily closely related to animals. They are the closest relative to animals of all the rest of the organisms on the planet. So you got animals and then fungus branching off right before that. And that shouldn't surprise you. You kind of want to act like a fungus. I know I do. Just sort of sit there in a cool, dark room and not bother anybody, not be bothered. But here's the thing. Fungus and animals are both heterotrophic. That is, they get their nutrients, their organic molecules from the environment. They both undergo absorptive nutrition. They pull nutrients directly across their membrane. Guys, there were a bunch of different types of ways to gather nutrients. Osmotrophy, phagotrophy, mixotrophy, and photoautotrophy. Which of those pulls nutrients through diffusion directly across the membrane? Osmotrophy. You and fungus are both osmotrophic. And both animals and fungus store their energy in the form of glycogen. Glycogen is a macromolecule. You may remember it from Bio 101. Super highly branched. And every one of those branches has lots and lots and lots of bonds. And anytime you break those bonds, what gets released? Energy. So Animals and fungus are heterotrophs. They both undergo osmotrophy, and they both store their energy as glycogen. It's very likely that this is the earliest common ancestor, this amoeboid organism, between fungus and animals. So you go way back, and this is the closest relation between us and the fungus. It was likely a protist that ate algae and fed through phagocytosis. Now, phagocytosis and osmotrophy are different. Phagocytosis is where you are going to surround your food in a vesicle and pull it in, and then digest it. Osmotrophy is where you pull nutrients directly across. Now, both of us ended up both animals and fungi independently developed osmotrophy. There was this clade early on, Nuclearia. It diverged. Nuclearia is a very advanced protist, and it produced what's called the cryptomycota. That's the earliest type of fungus, or the simple fungus. These cryptomycota live in soil and water, but they lack cell walls. What is a cell wall good for? What's the point of a cell wall? Two big things. And that's exactly it. Yes, protection. So you're going to be it prevents you from being hurt from the outside, but very, very importantly, maintaining your form. It allows the cell to suck in water without itself popping. So this cryptomycota lacked the cell wall. It would have to actively pump water out of it. Aside from that cryptomycota, all true fungi possess a chitinous cell wall. So chitin is sort of like cellulose in plant cells. It's a carbohydrate that sort of stacks and creates a very rigid structure. So most fungus have a cell wall made up of chitin. So good thing about cell walls, you're not going to burst due to osmosis. Water's not going to flood in and blow you up like a balloon until you pop. Downside, you don't get to do phagocytosis anymore. Phagocytosis, again, you have to pull things across the membrane, you form these vesicles, and you can't form vesicles using chitin. The chitin stops it, so it's a trade-off. Develop that new type of nutrient transport, which is osmotrophy. So there we go. Beginnings on fungus. Do you guys have any questions so far? We got our earliest fungus. Talked about land plants, not land plants, getting out of the water.